internally, you mentioned it, the idea that they do it based on free agent class. Is that something that players talk about and believe in?
Oh no, that's a fact. It's not. Guys have talked about it, but in 2019, they're.
And welcome to Interesting to See, your daily sports podcast about news, narratives, takes, and gambling. I am your host, Nick. It is Scandal Day here at the show, and I've got a couple for you. Holy crap, what an interesting day. Notre Dame gets a new head coach. I think, allegedly has its new head coach, would be the second black head coach in the school's history, which, of course, was a whole to-do about 15 years ago. But we're going to start today with Thursday Night Football. Might as well be positive and start with the fun stuff. The Dallas Cowboys have a bunch of people in COVID protocol. I believe as of this recording, Mike McCarthy was in COVID protocol, but I believe right now he's going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and we'll get into some other COVID stories later. I don't think Amari Cooper is going to play. Amari Cooper is, of course, unvaccinated, and he was experiencing symptoms, so it's going to be a while before we see Amari Cooper on the field. Most Vegas sportsbooks have taken the Cowboys' receiving props off of their sportsbooks because nobody knows which of them are going to play. So that's cool. But we'll take a look at the game. We'll look at the game anyway. I believe the Cowboys, yesterday we reported right here, you heard it here first, that the Dallas Cowboys are favored by 4.5 points. The over-under is 47.5. Oh my God, this is the best game ever. So you take 48, you divide it by 2, which is 24. You split 2 on each side. So what's that, 22 to 27? Is that right? 22 to 27 is 49. So just 20 to 25? No? 21-26? Here we go. 21-26, I figured out. Right in that range. 21-27 is where Vegas thinks the Cowboys will beat the Saints. As far as other props go, this is a trash game for props because nobody knows who's going to play. There are a bunch that are not on the board, and if they are on the board, you should not even consider them because nobody knows who has COVID. Everybody went on Thanksgiving break, and now a bunch of people have COVID. Go figure. In the NFL, the Lions had a couple guys, and I believe the Cowboys had a couple guys, and I think the Bills had a couple guys. But of course, it's interesting because those are teams that all played on Thanksgiving. I also, by the way, the Saints and the Cowboys got screwed by the NFL. When you play on Thursday night, you're supposed to get a mini bye. Well, they're playing on back-to-back Thursdays. The Saints and the Cowboys. There were 6 teams that played on Thursday: Detroit, Chicago, Dallas, Buffalo, New Orleans, and Vegas. And Dallas and New Orleans are playing tonight. This happened back in 2015 with Detroit, the Detroit Lions as well. Like, what the hell? When you play on Thanksgiving, the point of the game is that you get a mini-bye. Screw these people. And then I guess you get a mini-bye next week. Well, what the hell? What are we doing? You want a mini-bye on Thanksgiving weekend? Anyway, Cowboys got screwed. I'm pretty excited for this game. I think the Saints could piss off the Cowboys. The Cowboys, nobody knows who's good this year. Nobody wants to be good week to week. So I'm actually looking forward to it. It's going to be a pretty fun game. No Lose November is over for the Phoenix Suns. Of course, that means that they were undefeated in the month of November. Let's find out. The Phoenix Suns. Let's just take a quick look-see. They are hosting the Pistons. So let's go back to November 2nd. Win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 0 in November. That's piping hot. Are they the best team in the National Basketball Association? They're 18-3. The Nets are the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference. The Suns are the number 1 team in the Western Conference. All right, let's get to Notre Dame is allegedly hiring Marcus Freeman. As we mentioned, he's the defensive coordinator. I don't know what to make of this hire. I think it appears safe, but I don't think it is actually safe. I actually think this is one of the riskier things that you can do because if it doesn't work, then you have to rebuild and you're at square one. Marcus Freeman and Tommy Rees, who's the offensive coordinator, they have had sort of meteoric rises in coaching, and I don't think that their ambition stops at Notre Dame. So I think Marcus Freeman might be trying to make his way to the NFL. At which point, who knows what would happen. Okay, let's get to some scandals. Let's start in China, where we've got 2 things happening. Thing number 1 is that the World Tennis Association has canceled all Chinese associated events until they can further secure the safety of one of its players who alleged sexual assault publicly. So what happened was back about a month ago today or yesterday on November 2nd, a famous tennis player by the name of Peng, her first name is, Peng Shui, she alleged that one of the head officials in the Chinese government, like the minister of sport or something, had sexually assaulted her. At that point, the social media post was taken down from the internet after 20 minutes. Her name was unsearchable in China, and people hadn't seen her or heard from her in like weeks. And then they see her in video conferences, which nobody believes, by the way, that there isn't someone with a gun just pointing it at people on video conference. So the WTA is like, yep, we've been screwing around for a while. We are unsure that she's actually safe, so we're canceling everything, which is pretty intense. That's a pretty intense move, of course. The Olympics are coming up in China, and that's another scandal that's happening right now. So there are two things happening. So one thing is the tennis thing. The other thing is between the tennis player and between just like general Chinese diplomacy, the United States is considering a strategic boycott of the Olympics, but this is in conjunction with the National Hockey League kind of considering a boycott as well, for a couple reasons. Reason number one is that Chinese protocols for COVID-19 are incredibly intense. If you were to test positive after competing in the Olympics as a hockey player, you'd be stuck in China for 3 weeks minimum. So a lot of these owners and GMs are like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to send my players. I really don't want my players to go. The players have earned the right through CBA to go and compete in the Olympics, but a lot of guys are starting to check that. Olympic committees and various national teams have players at like hotels or Olympic villages that are close to casinos and people and whatnot in the Olympics, and they're like, I'm going to lose money if I'm stuck in China. Right now, only one NHL player is unvaccinated for COVID. That's Detroit Red Wings' Tyler Bertuzzi, and he is out right now with COVID, which is shocking. So the NHL is kind of, originally the players really, really, really wanted to compete in the Olympics. Everybody wants the break. It's much longer than the All-Star break in the National Hockey League. It's multiple weeks, and if you're not in the Olympics, which most players in the NHL are not in the Olympics because most of them are Canadian, they want the break. But the players are starting to get a little sheepish about, like, I don't know about going to China and perhaps getting stuck there for a long time. So it's becoming kind of an intense situation. So let's move to baseball. Major League Baseball locked out this morning. There is a lockout. There's a labor negotiation going on, and baseball famously hates labor and management hate each other far more aggressively than they do in any other sport. In the NBA, the players have power. In the NFL, it's pretty 50-50. Everyone thinks the owners have power, but the players, it's the closest to a 50-50 split of revenue in NFL any labor union has ever got. It's kind of crazy. But in baseball, the players have a really tight union, but the owners have all the power. Famously, there's no salary cap in baseball because the players believe it will drive up their salaries. But in the last negotiation, I want to make sure I get all of this correct. In the last negotiation, which was signed 2016, 2015, somewhere in there, there is various language that allow teams to incentivize for tanking. And tanking is what is this new labor negotiation will be about. And I don't know what the players are proposing. There's some different rumors, and I don't even understand any of that. But the idea is that because elite free agent player salaries are so high and those guys don't pan out all that often, teams are just tanking to be more competitive and to save money, which makes a ton of sense. But the free agents, the free agent guys, the veteran players, they're like the high-ranking union members, so they want the money for themselves, and the teams are like, listen, we're just not going to pay it. So now they're trying to de-incentivize tanking, which would create a lottery, but it's baseball. The owners don't want an overhaul of the system, but the players do. And I don't know I don't know what numbers you got to look at, but the ratings for baseball are not great. So there are different lotteries being proposed. They want to find rule changes. They want to find various things that kind of like the players, like they have such a tight knit union. But I don't know. I think we might be headed for a delayed start. Spring training is slated to start sometime in March, early March, for spring training. All right, let's. I guess we're keeping on baseball. Baseball's got more crap to deal with. Should we do baseball? Let's keep it on baseball. So, according to a report from Yahoo Sports, there's an allegation by a sports physicist named Dr. Meredith Wills, who dissected baseballs and measured them and kind of figured out what balls baseball was using, because we know that baseball occasionally changes the balls. Some balls are what they call juiced, and that means have a tighter core and whatnot, and those balls are used to promote offense, and then there were lighter balls that are used to promote defense. Now, the clip you heard at the beginning of the show was a baseball player by the name of Pete Alonso from the New York Mets saying, yeah, no, MLB uses the balls. They lie about what balls they're using because they want to manipulate the price of the free agent market. Totally believe that they would do that. So the way this works, I suppose, is that this physicist, Dr. Meredith Wills, who's like a scientist, can tell when the balls were made. The MLB alleged that the juiced balls stopped being used in 2020 because there were production issues, so there was a mix of two different baseballs. And then 2021, they found that because of all of these free agent pitchers that were hitting the market, that the balls were promoting offense. So let's hear Pete Alonso's context in full. This is from Starting Nine, which is a Barstool Sports podcast, and I do not care that I'm stealing it. I'm sure they'll get over it. So here's Pete Alonso, his full comments.
Strange year with the COVID season.
I hadn't heard until you mentioned it, the idea that they do it based on free agent class. Is that something that players talk about and believe in?
Oh no, that's a fact. It's not. Yes, guys have talked about it, but in 2019 there's a huge class of free agent pitchers, and then that's quote unquote the juice balls, and then 2020 was a strange year with the COVID season, but now that we're back to playing a regular season with a ton of shortstops or position players that are going to be paid a lot of money, like high caliber players. It's not a coincidence, and I think that it definitely is something that they do.
Yeah, and that makes sense that they do that, but it doesn't make any sense to me that would work, because if it doesn't make you any better or worse relative to the people in the same year. And if you're not going to pay someone based on the class, I don't know that it really changes that much. That's sort of my opinion. They obviously do this. It makes a ton of sense. Baseball is such a dirty organization. It's getting really hard to continue to care about professional baseball. It really is. And then at the end of the day, there's still 3-hour-long games, and the vast majority of them are incredibly boring. All right, one more scandal. RG3 is publishing a book. Robert Griffin III, who was a quarterback for the former now Washington football team and the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback of the Baylor Bears. And in his book, he has reported that he's going to allege sexual assault and sexual harassment at the Washington football team, which raises the question, where the hell were you, buddy? Why now? And everyone's like, that's a really great question. All that it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. So RG3, you can expect RG3 to fall under some heat for this, and I guess rightfully so. If he says he knew, and then he was like, "Yeah, I knew. Buy my book so you can read what happened," but I didn't tell anybody about it. What a spineless move that would be. So I sure hope that that's not what this is. Yikes. So I'm laughing because this is so sad, and it just keeps happening in this country. This is not a political podcast. There was a shooting at Oxford High School in Michigan, which is 40 minutes outside of Detroit. I think it's north of Detroit in a suburb. Everybody's read the story. You may have heard about it. Very famously, now a defensive linebacker and running back, one of the better players in the high school football team, charged the gunman, kind of sacrificed his own life, and ended up being one of the reasons that there were so many less victims than there could have been. 4 people were shot and killed, and I believe right now the injury count is at 7. It was a random act of violence by a 15-year-old who brought a handgun to school. So this football player pretty much saved a bunch of lives. We can agree. But there are some connections with the Detroit Lions that are really kind of interesting that you wouldn't think. So the head coach of the Oxford High School football team is this guy named Zach Line. He played high school football for Oxford. He also went to play college football at SMU. He was in the NFL for 7 seasons where he was a fullback. Interestingly, when he was a fullback, he's a pretty young guy. It was 2017 to 2019. He was a teammate when current Detroit Lions linebacker Alex Anzalone was there, and current Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell coached this guy. So they have connections, and they've been reaching out and really thoughts and condolences to the people at Oxford High School, and that's their friend and former teammate Zach Line is a head coach of the football team. He lost that football player Tate Meyer, who was just 16. Picture circulating around the internet of him taking his official visit to Toledo, where he was being recruited to play, I'm assuming, running back or linebacker. All right, we'll get out of here with one more scandal. I love Scandal Day. A story was circulating around the internet it was a story that was written during the head coaching cycle in the NFL last year regarding Matt LaFleur, and Robert Saleh when they were graduate assistants at Grand Valley State when Brian Kelly was the head coach, and Brian Kelly made them, for $0, shovel his driveway and park cars for a party he was having. Yeah, Brian Kelly's a dick. He's always been a dick. Wins a lot of football games. He's a dick. He always has been. I don't know that I would do it. And I don't think I would be fired for it either. But, sometimes this millennial generation might be calling people on their BS. We'll be back and better than ever tomorrow. There are major college football games to preview tomorrow, and we will, of course, review Thursday night football. This is interesting to see. Like, rate, review, subscribe, etc., etc.